Viewer discretion is advised.
Seattle Seahawks. Well, isn't this little post-game rant a lot less embarrassing now that you've taken the title of the league's social justice warrior outfit? How about all those years you sucked donkey balls and Congressman Steve Largent was your best player? And here's a dish that's hard to swallow. Seattle Seahawks, Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft. So when you get all that spyware on your PC, blame the Seahawks. This game didn't start out as your typical blown lead game, as it was kind of back and forth. But in the third quarter, Jim Zorn put his team up 24 points as the Hawks led 34-10. And immediately after that, everything went the Broncos' way as they scored 27 unanswered points and ended up winning 37-34. The Seahawks have been known to push the envelope on the field, but they have also been caught trying to hone their tactics off of it. 3 times in Pete Carroll's gum-chewing tenure have the Hawks been caught holding illegal practices, and they have been fined and have lost draft picks as a result.
We're in here talking about practice.
CenturyLink Field, the NFL's giant Gordita Crunch. One of the smartest designed fields in the NFL, the stadium uses its roof to funnel noise onto the field of play and create an obviously disruptive environment. Bonus fact, in 2013, the field was given the honor of loudest in the world by the Guinness Book of World Records at 137.57 decibels, which has since been beat by another stadium on this list. Before the Legion of Boom, there was the platoon of Suck, and in 1980, the Seahawks got all they could handle from the Cowboys, who laid a 51-7 beatdown on them in the Kingdome. It would have been 51-0 if Jim Zorn didn't throw for a 2-yard fourth quarter TD. Here's what Earl Thomas thinks of this game. This uniform screams to me, look, we're Nike, and not only do we make football jerseys, but we also make various spandex and lycra products that you can work out in and feel skinnier because you are sweating more, you fat piece of shit. The shoulders are a subtle representation of their logo, a hawk that snatches things out of the air. You can say not running the ball is probably the all-time biggest backfire in terms of play calling, but I've beaten that dead horse so many times I should be charged with animal cruelty. What was a huge misfire is the Percy Harvin trade when in 2013 the Hawks swapped a 1st and 7th rounder to the Vikings for the maligned wideout and then immediately signed him to a 6-year, $67 million contract. He didn't play until week 11. In fact, his only memorable moment was a kick return in the Super Bowl that they won easily, and trust me, that was not a deciding factor at all. He also fought with teammates and whined like a bitch on the sidelines, taking himself out of game. He was traded to the butt fumble for nothing. The Vikings turned their picks into Xavier Rhodes and Jerick McKinnon. Whoopsie! Blitz used to look like the Muppet Eagle, but over time has been changed to look like Steve Carell? This bird has a sidekick, Boom, who was introduced in 2014. I wonder if he's planning on leaving for the Niners. I don't want to speculate, but I'm positive in this picture that Blitz is on the sauce. Add a ball and chain to this one, because you just strapped the franchise to that deal you gave Russ. And let's of course add a pane of glass in between you and the Lombardi in honor of Super Bowl 49. Oh, you almost had it. Seahawks fan doesn't even remember how to be salty because you didn't know you had a team before Russell Wilson arrived. Plus, they try to make you feel like you are actually part of the team by giving you a cute little jersey number and lauding you for being able to yell really loudly. Everyone gets a participation trophy. Do any of you remember that you were an AFC team back in the day and you blew a trip to the Super Bowl to the Raiders? Here's a friendly reminder that Richard Sherman voluntarily joined the Niners. I love him, but Russell Wilson is an embarrassment on social media.
Hey, Seattle, we got a deal.
Go Hawks.
Unlimited. Yeah, I'm unlimited.
Who's your role model, Russell?
Unlimited.
Mr. Unlimited? That sounds stupid.
I mean, he's more awkward than a 67-year-old man taking off his shirt. One of the few triple-use stadiums, as the Sonics also played here, the Kingdome enjoyed a long history of NFL football. In 1994, ceiling tiles began falling and the Kingdome was closed as 3 NFL games were played in Husky Stadium. The dome was demolished 6 years later and replaced with CenturyLink Field. Speaking of sad, we have the Seahawks logo, who has one pathetic, wrinkly eye and is complete with a frown that reeks of regret, like drafting Brian Bosworth level regret. They finally updated this thing in 2002, right about the time when Seattle started to realize they had a football team. This stadium gets extra points for being clever for engineering a home field advantage into the actual design, which allows the roof to funnel noise down to the playing surface. The surrounding area is close to downtown. Doesn't look like there's much parking, but I'm sure everyone here takes their bikes to the games anyways. Also, the seating capacity is exactly 69,000. Say it with me. Tom Flores may have just one baby with the Raiders and absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame, but up north in Seattle, the 2-time Super Bowl champ went just 14-34 in 3 seasons from 1992 to 1994. Maybe the reason grunge took off was because they were all depressed about their football team. It's actually the weather. The NFL wants the most neutral site for a game that they can, and if the Seahawks somehow made it to Super Bowl Sunday, their stadium would be a huge advantage for them, but the biggest detractor would be rain. Rain simply is not something they would want that could both affect the outcome of the game, but also the quality of the broadcast. It would also put a strain on the game day experience. Sorry, Seattle, you've been washed out. Bill Parcells' Jets showed up to the Kingdome in 1997 and left a 41-3 steamer on the doorstep. Neil O'Donnell, in rare form, was perfect, throwing 5 touchdowns and no picks. Ah yes, Jets legend Neil O'Donnell. I'm sure you all felt like this when Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson left. Now your defense is trash while your QB room literally has Drew Lock in it. And y'all got roasted on Twitter. This cringe graphic ought to trigger you. And imagine after losing the Legion of Boom and Corny Russ, you spent all that draft capital on Blitz Boy.
I'm the best in the nation.
He was gonna hit it right in the head.
Ken Behring, Seattle Seahawks. Since 1997, the Seahawks have been owned by late Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen and his family, marking a very stable, successful time for the franchise. What many people forget is that the team used to get passed around like your mom at a frat party. Originally owned by the Nordstrom family, the team was then bought by Ken Behring and Ken Hoffman in 1988. Now, Ken Behring was a special kind of asshole. The real estate developer was accused multiple times of sexual harassment, and in all cases, he settled out of court. He was also a big game hunter and loved going to Africa to shoot him a rhinoceros in the face, or an endangered species or two, like some rare sheep in Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan is the greatest country in the world.
In 1998, he shot and killed an elephant in Mozambique, which was illegal. But hey, none of that will cause you to lose your NFL franchise, as that seems to be standard rich white guy stuff, like, you know, tax evasion. No, what caused him to sell was in 1996, Behring thought he would move the team's operations to Anaheim in a blatant attempt to relocate the team to Southern California. The team also temporarily filed for bankruptcy in an attempt to make things seem dire. All those shenanigans pissed Paul Tagliabue off, and he threatened to fine the team $500K a day if they did not move their operations back to the Pacific Northwest. Instead, in 1996, Behring sold the team to Paul Allen for $200 million, a cool $120 million profit from his initial investment of $80 million. During his ownership, the Seahawks sucked shit through a straw, switched conferences twice, and didn't make the playoffs once. Behring died in 2019, and not a single Seahawks fan gave a shit. And finally, the greatest, most easily scripted shit ever. The Fail Mary was scripted to get the refs back to work. It was going to take a masterful stroke of the pen to get the NFL out of one of its greatest pickles ever. When the refs went on strike at the start of the 2012 season, something unbelievable would have to take place to establish that the regular officials, as hated as they were indispensable members of the NFL cast. And it would also take something crazy in front of a national audience. Enter a rookie quarterback by the name of Russell Wilson, just beginning his underdog arc, a full decade before he would become public enemy number one in Denver. It was a tight contest between the Packers and Seahawks in Seattle. Down to their last play, the elusive Wilson broke contain and heaved up a prayer to the end zone for Golden Tate. The pass was almost clearly picked off, but the replacement refs were told to take one for the team. And being grateful just to be there, they obliged. One ref signaled touchdown, the other signaled for an interception. Ultimately, they decided it was a touchdown in a moment that caused many viewers in the Wisconsin market to turn their TV screens into Swiss cheese. The writers penned a beautiful plot twist that would force the league to ease up on their hardball negotiations, with the officials restoring order to the NFL. Dang, they did their boys a solid. Those writers really do get our asses every season. Brilliant job, you bastards. No, this is not the name of a gangbang movie. This is the home of the 12th man. Since Tom got a pretty extensive tour of Lumen Field, I'll let him take it away.
Yeah, no, Seattle was cool. It is the smallest in terms of like square footage. Basically, I think he said it's like 6 stadiums into one because of how they're pieced together, because they need to be able to withstand earthquakes. And they have had like man-made earthquakes, because when you had the beast mode run, like that one, like the earthquake, yeah. That place is like brimming with history. There's a few teams that play there, right? So it's like the Seahawks, they got soccer that plays there. Like there's a few teams, but they kind of work together. Like when they host events, like they host like farm markets and stuff, but that is the Seahawks stadium. The reason why it's so loud there, because it's the second loudest stadium in the NFL, it was kind of like an accident. But it's because of the metal like awning that they have over it. Like it literally bounces off the field and then just reverberates in there. So they just turned up the music a tiny bit while I was on the field, and you heard it like blasting through there. So it's a huge home field advantage. And the best part is they have to make, it's in the contract, like with the city, they have to be in the top 10 in terms of ranking for like fan experience and things like that. And if they're not, they have to make renovations to actually fix that.
The Kingdome, Seattle, Washington. When the Kingdome was opened in 1976, it was state of the art. Following the quote unquote success of the Astrodome, the Kingdome sought to be another dual use artificial turf stadium that would host football, baseball, and even basketball. That's tri-use, not dual use. The Kingdome was very loud, but it lacked any sort of character. It was sterile and the turf was bad. Though players loved the atmosphere, and so did the fans, eventually it fell into disrepair with a ceiling collapse in 1994 that led to the Mariners being evicted for the last 20 games of their season. It was mercifully imploded in 2000, having been one of the worst NFL stadiums of its era.
The 2010 Seahawks. The 2010 Seahawks and Packers had very similar decades. They both won a Super Bowl early on with a young, budding Hall of Fame quarterback. Both made the playoffs 8 times and remained consistent contenders the entire time. The difference comes back to the 2014 NFC Championship game, in which Seattle won over Green Bay to give them a second Super Bowl appearance the Packers failed to achieve. The Seahawks came agonizingly close to repeating as champs, but they blew a 10-point fourth quarter lead before Tom Brady willed Russell Wilson to throw a goal line interception to Malcolm Butler with 20 seconds. Seattle. Fuck you for handing Tom Brady another ring. God damn you, you stupid coffee-loving losers. Why did you call that fucking play? Run the ball. Okay, now that that's out of the way, it was on the 1-yard line and you blew it. You needed 1 more yard and Marshawn Lynch was in your backfield and you threw it? I'm sorry, it's just a lot to handle. It's fitting that despite Russell Wilson evolving into an elite quarterback since Super Bowl 49, your defense has gotten progressively worse at the same time, and you haven't been back to an NFC Championship game in 6 years. Your team has become letting Russ do whatever he wants and then figuring it out from there. Wilson starts off every year putting up historic numbers, getting MVP praise, then comically falling on his face. Maybe one of these years he'll finally be consistent enough to win one while also making an NFC Championship game without a top 2 defense. Pete Carroll looks like Brandy Love and is a 9/11 truther. DK Metcalf's career highlight will always be a play that has nothing to do with him catching a football. The city of Seattle has devolved into an absolute war zone thanks to shitty political leadership, and Starbucks tastes like hot ass. Blitz, Seahawks. Blitz has an awesome name, a fierce look, cool colors, and just enough of a shit-eating grin that says, you know that girl you fantasize about? I fucked her last night. He's awesome. If only the Seahawks play calling in Super Bowl 49 could have been as good. Fuck, why did you not give Blitz the fucking ball at the goal line? God damn it. Rating, 10 out of 10. Seattle Seahawks, Russell Wilson. Wilson came out of nowhere as a little-known third-round pick in 2012 to become one of the NFL's consistently elite quarterbacks. Through 10 seasons, he's made 9 Pro Bowls and won a Super Bowl in 2013. He's famously never made an All-Pro team or gotten a single MVP vote, but that doesn't change how he's kept the Seahawks relevant as the Legion of Boom fell apart. Wilson has some of the best efficiency metrics of all time, and barring a sudden retirement or major injury, he'll retire with huge counting stats as well. He's going to deservedly make the Hall of Fame someday. I just wish he didn't throw that fucking pass to Ricardo Lockett on the goal line in Super Bowl 49. Why did you do that, Russ? You really hurt me. Seattle Seahawks, Kelly Stouffer. Stouffer's career is hilarious. He was drafted 7th overall in 1987 by the Cardinals, but refused to play for them, so he sat out a year until he was traded to the Seahawks, where he proceeded to suck major ass. In 5 years with Seattle, he started 16 games, going 5-11 and throwing just 7 touchdowns to 19 interceptions for a minuscule 54.5 rating. He would never play another down in the NFL again once leaving Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl 49. We all know about the Malcolm Butler interception that lost Seattle a second straight title and gave Tom Brady his 4th ring, but Seattle's choke goes deeper than just one play. They had 2 drives with a 24-14 lead late in the 3rd and early in the 4th quarter, but went scoreless on both. This included a crucial 3rd down drop deep in New England territory by Jermaine Kearse. Seattle then had the ball up 24-21 in the 4th and of course went 3 and out. Then there was the famous final drive, which saw Kearse make a play nobody thought would be topped, only for it to be topped 2 plays later by Butler's interception. If Seattle had just run the ball with Lynch on the 1-yard line, they win. The franchise still hasn't recovered from the Seattle Seahawks, Jamal Adams. Adams is more known for his talking than he is for his playing. He is listed as a safety, but he plays more like a linebacker. In 5 seasons, he has just 4 interceptions, showing he lacks ball skill. Considering the multiple first-round picks Seattle spent to get him, his time in the Northwest has been an abject disaster. Seattle Seahawks, Jim Zorn. Longtime Seattle fans have fond memories of Zorn, as he was the first quarterback the team ever had. He had some solid seasons, to be sure, but he really wasn't that good, and a lot of the good memories Hawks fans have are just nostalgia. Of course, most Seattle fans are younger and probably don't remember Zorn, but there's really no other option for this team. Give me a break. No offense to Kevin Wynn. Seattle Seahawks, Drew Lock / Geno Smith. The quarterback competition version of 2 homeless bums fighting over a steak. Everybody knows both of these guys suck, but with Lock, there is a little more hope since he's younger and has a big arm. Verdict, both properly rated. Seattle Seahawks. You were 1 yard away from having back-to-back Super Bowl wins, but instead got intercepted and haven't made it back to the NFC Championship game since. And now that your future Hall of Fame quarterback is gone because he hated your team so much, you're going to suck for the foreseeable future, all while living in a city that sells shitty coffee, has tons of skunk weed, and constantly rains just like the city from the movie 7. The Legion of Boom blew a lot of late leads, and Bobby Wagner is overrated as hell. Seattle Seahawks, Geno Smith. Geno's career was dead in the water entering last season before he had one of the greatest comeback stories in the history of sports. That doesn't mean he still has nothing left to prove, though. Geno must prove that last season wasn't just a fluke and a flash in the pan, and it also wouldn't hurt if he was able to win a playoff game or show that he could perform well in the postseason. All of this seems crazy to expect when just 12 months ago Smith was considered one of the biggest draft busts in NFL history with no future at all. The fact that he even has expectations like this again speaks to his hard work and how much better he's gotten since he was last a full-time starter. I'm rooting for him, but he still has a lot to prove. Therefore, I give his prove it rating an 8.5 out of 10. Seattle Seahawks, DK Metcalf. Metcalf showed in 2022 that he is not a Russell Wilson merchant. Former workout warrior has carved out a very solid career and is just entering his prime, so expect another easy 1,000-yard season with around 10 touchdowns again in 2023. Honorable mention goes to Tariq Woolen, cornerback with a lot of potential. Yeah, that's right, Seahawks fans. I know about Tariq. I do my homework. Seattle Seahawks. 2016, Jermaine Ifedi. Jermaine lasted 4 seasons with the Seahawks, never really breaking out into anything special before leaving for Chicago. Therefore, I have to say that he was a miss. 2018, Rashad Penny. Penny. Penny, when he's on the field, has been an absolute beast, but therein lies the problem. He's rarely on the field and always injured, so therefore, I have to say he's a miss, although he's on the Eagles now, so I'm hoping he finally stays healthy for the first time in his life, but I doubt it. 2019, LJ Collier. In 4 seasons with Seattle, Collier had just 3 sacks before moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. Therefore, he's a miss. 2020, Jordan Brooks. Brooks has developed into a very good off-ball linebacker, although he might be injured to start the 2023 season. Still, he's been good. He's a hit. 2022, Charles Cross. Cross had some rookie moments, as you would expect as a rookie in 2022, but overall, he has shown a lot of potential, and I think he could be very good someday. So far, he's Seattle Seahawks, DK Metcalf. This is almost a by default selection because Metcalf is a very good player, but he is one of the only few players that really gets any hype at all on the Seahawks ever since Wilson left. The biggest reason he's here is because I feel like he could be even better than he is. And now that he has disclosed the fact that he has the eating habits of somebody who belongs on my 600-pound life, one can only wonder that if he had a proper diet, if he could be the best receiver in the league. But he's just so genetically gifted that he's still a 1,000-yard type of guy. I think he has more to get out of his talent, and I think he could have 1,500-yard type of season eventually. But for now, he stays overrated. Seattle Seahawks, 2019 Russell Wilson. I could have gone with 2013 Russell Wilson as he had great efficiency numbers and he won the Super Bowl, but we all know that Super Bowl was won off of the back of Seattle's defense and Marshawn Lynch. In 2019, Wilson was spectacular, at least for half the season, but he still finished with over 4,000 yards passing, 31 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions, a 106 passer rating, while also running for 3 more scores. And then in the postseason, he continued his efficient play, but unfortunately, the Seahawks season ended in the divisional round versus Green Bay, but not before Wilson in those 2 playoff games had a 107 passer rating and averaged almost 10 yards per attempt and over 50 rushing yards a game. Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll. 2022 was a make it or break it season for Pete as he had to beat the Russell Wilson merchant allegations. One bad season could have gotten him fired, and yet he ended up leading the Seahawks to a winning record thanks to a resurgence from Geno Smith while Wilson floundered in Denver. Now, Carroll's standing as one of the top coaches in the NFL is back. But again, the NFL is a performance-based business. And no matter who you want to credit the Seahawks' success to, the Legion of Boom, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, whatever, the fact is the Seahawks have won 1 playoff game over the last 6 years. The Seahawks bounce-back season last year and the feel-good story with Geno was nice. But if the team relapses, Pete could be on the hot seat very, very quickly once again. I have his hot seat ranking at a 2.5 out of 5. Seattle Seahawks. Hawks fans, everybody talks about your team throwing an interception 1 yard away from repeating as Super Bowl champs in Super Bowl 49. Nobody talks about the Seattle offense having the ball twice, up 24-14 and getting no points, or being up 24-21 and getting no points, or how the much-famed Legion of Boom allowed a fucking dink and dunk merchant to lead back-to-back touchdowns, all to bail out Tom Brady, of course, in the 4th quarter. This unfathomable choke has overshadowed many other chokes your franchise has had in the last decade, which all stick out like a sore thumb around your 43-8 Super Bowl win in 2013. Taking a 1-point lead in the last 30 seconds of the 2012 divisional round versus Atlanta and still losing with a quote-unquote legendary defense was a dandy. Then in 2015, you lost by 7 to a 15-1 Panthers team in the divisional round, a game in which the difference was another Russell Wilson interception, a pick 6, and you only even got there in the first place because Blair Walsh whiffed on an extra point-length field goal in the wild card round. You got your back blown out in 2016 by the Falcons. You blew a 4th quarter lead to the Cowboys in the 2018 wildcard round, failed on a go-ahead drive attempt in the 4th quarter of the divisional round in 2019 to the Packers, then got blown out at home in the 2020 wildcard round by the Rams, who were led by Jared Goff with a broken thumb. In 2021, Russell Wilson got hurt and you missed the playoffs, then traded him to Denver, officially ending the Wilson era. What do you notice about all of these losses that I described? That's right, there's no conference championship game appearances. The much ballyhooed quote-unquote Legion of Doom could only muster 2 conference championship game appearances? Hell, Mark Sanchez did that. But it gets better, Seahawks fans. You haven't won a playoff game where your opponent scored a touchdown since 2014. Specifically, the 2014 NFC Championship game, which was a fluke win thanks to Brandon Bostic and a prayer being answered on a 2-point conversion. Thanks to Pete Carroll, Brandy Love, being a conspiracy theorist, you somehow got a 30-touchdown pass season out of Geno Smith to remain respectable record-wise, but I'm sure that putting your future hopes on a 33-year-old quarterback who's been dog shit for 90% of his career will work out just
just fine, especially in a division with the 49ers. When Seattle isn't being brought up for its football team being a bunch of chokers, it's most known for the glorified liquid shit known as Starbucks coffee, outdated grunge bands, and being where Ted Bundy grew up. Congratulations.